stand over there. Here comes the mic.
Thank you very much. As a screening member of Frameline, it's always great to see documentaries about things you know nothing about. I'm a huge Hole fan, and I never knew in a million years, so greatly appreciated. But what was the genesis for the documentary? Was it a story that needed to be told, and you felt it wasn't told, and you felt the world needed to hear it?
I never thought I would ever tell my story ever until a friend talked to me. I never predicted doing it and imagined doing it. A friend told me to preserve my footage, you know, and digitize it because it was going to disintegrate. And so I called David and I said, can you help me with this? And he said, yeah, I'll just set up the decks and come over and you can, you know, just purely to be able to so it wouldn't dissolve and die, just to have it as a memory. And as I started to explain to David that over all the scenes, he told me there's a great story here. And so, you know, that's how it evolved. That was the start of it. And it was a bit of, I also, as I started to think about it more and more, I did want to talk about what my perspective throughout that whole time was. There's many perceptions of how things were then, what Kurt Cobain was like, or what Courtney Love was like. And I, just like them, were another person, you know, in a band in a very tumultuous time, but successful at a young age, and part of that scene from Seattle.
Well, thank you. I listen to Hole regularly, so thank you very much. My last question too, being someone from the clean and sober community for double decades, did you feel also that was something that was very important to bring up, and how are you doing today with that?
Yeah, it was important to tell my story, and that a lot of friends and other musician friends did make it out, and that, you know, like in Kurt's case, he chose suicide, another OD'd, and my story isn't so unique as, you know, many people, no matter, I mean, my story happens to lots of addicts, and this is just what happened to me, and I'm grateful to have gone through and to be able to be on the other side of it, sort of, you know. I mean, you're never done dealing with your addiction, but, you know, I'm here today, so.
And also there's a sequence at the end of the movie that kind of came out of us wanting to show the progression, where you see that the sort of blue shirt interview that we talked about is 2 years sober. At that point, Patty was really saying to us that she wasn't sure she wanted to play music anymore, certainly not professionally. Then 3 years sober, 4 years sober, 5 years sober, and by that point and now, you know, Patty's playing in a couple of different bands and back to playing music, which, you know, is also a really great thing. So let's stand up.
I'd like to ask a question about how long you shot this film, because you do interviews with her over 2 years sober, 3 years sober, 4 years sober, 5 years sober, which seemed to be very respectful of her process. But when you got into this, how long did you think it was going to take, and when did you decide that you had a movie?
Patty brought the footage to us in summer of 2007. I was in between jobs, and I thought, you know, sure, a little documentary, you know, I'll do that in 6 months. I'm sort of by trade a narrative filmmaker, much more than I am a doc filmmaker. I've done some doc segments for things, but it wasn't really like my focus. So I didn't know that what happens is that it takes you 4 years to make a documentary, and that you end up with your first cut being 4 hours long, and then you have to start trying to figure out, you know, what's inside of the movie that really is the part that you want to be telling. So it was an ongoing and long process, and, you know, collecting interviews and talking to people. And when we were doing it together, Todd and I, we were discovering more story and things that we didn't know from when we first talked to Patty. So a lot of those things where we were turning to her to say, oh, let's talk some more. I'd like to ask you, go through another interview with you. Sometimes it would be because we had gotten deeper into the story and knew more than we knew when we started. Other things, it was sort of like also, we started out saying, let's just do the easy stuff first. Let's talk about your early bands. But then that would lead to her talking about the things that she went through in her earlier years. Or we'd say, oh, today we're going to do the really easy one, puff questions, talk about the dog business. And then that led into her talking about, how she got into a sober life. So everything kind of related back in, and as we were finishing the movie is when we actually realized that there had been progression to it also as it went along.
Okay, I'll ask another one then. Documentaries, when they start.
No.
I got lots of people.
But I love your deep voice.
Okay, Patty, thank you so much for being here. It's awesome to see you, and the drumming on Live Through This is far fucking better than on Celebrity Skin, so go! And also, I brought my 13-year-old and 9-year-old daughters with me because they absolutely adore Hole and everything, the Riot Girl thing and the feminism and all that, so that's awesome that they're getting to see you, so thank you. This is kind of a strange off question, and I'm totally honored that this is all about you, but since you guys did include stuff about Kurt, I'm kind of curious because my son went to the screening in Portland and he left crying because of the Kurt Cobain stuff, because he's read Love and Death and all those books, and he chooses to think Kurt didn't commit suicide, that Courtney had something to do with it, that kind of idea. And it's like, to that whole generation that kind of grew up with Kurt as a memory rather than a reality, and they kind of he gave them hope because they were outsiders and they want to be like him, so it kind of helps to think he didn't kill himself. And also you have Courtney in this movie, and she doesn't obviously come off too well, just eating the whole time. I thought that seemed like a really conscious choice too, that the interview with her, she's obviously so uncomfortable that she's got to eat the whole time through it, which I thought was very telling. But anyway, I'm sure you have mixed feelings about her, I'd imagine. Obviously it seems like she helped you at points and obviously didn't at others, but could you kind of speak to that, like how you feel about, the generations growing up and looking to Kurt and looking to you guys and looking to everybody for some kind of hope, being others, but at the same time your story turned out to be a success and Kurt's turned out really sadly, so kind of like what? I don't know, that's not really a question, I guess, but it is, you know what I mean? Could you speak to that, I guess, the choice to include Kurt and talk about that and frame it as a suicide and all that stuff. Thank you so much, Patty.
Thank you. The 90s was such a great time for, and where I came from Seattle, we were all encouraging each other to play music, and when women encouraged other women to play music, and it was amazing, and a dream come true that the world focused on that scene, and that Nirvana became this worldwide sensation. And the lyrics were amazing and touched everyone, and it wasn't plastic or songs about chicks, and and they sort of broke that heavy metal barrier, of chicks and cars and all, I mean, just to put it lightly, I guess. And in turn, Kurt talks about the music that he loved, which included women musicians, and shed a light on great bands like women bands from Olympia, or and these smaller scenes around the world. And that in these scenes there were kids that could barely play an instrument but were creating music anyway and writing. We had fanzines and we didn't have the internet, So we had these really tight-knit communities, and we shared through our zines and the mail and, these tours, and so it was, and then all of a sudden everybody looked towards, us and saw, heard some really different styles of music that you didn't really hear on the radio, which was really important and really amazing, and I was so grateful to be a part of that, and to be a female drummer in a boys' club was great too, So I don't know if that answered the question, but.
And
I have a question.
A little bit more to that, just about like the decision to include the issues about Kurt, was that we really felt like nothing could be in the story unless it related back to Patty, and it really had a lot to do about, you know, that there were some people who didn't make it through that were very close to her, and, you know, obviously she's someone who made it through to the other side. So we felt like portraying Kurt's story, Kristen's story, and even showing just kind of the dangerous world of what rock and roll is through, you know, looking at the image of somebody like Courtney Love and how, you know, attracted to fame she is. What is success? Is success what it is that she gets to go through every day, or success what, you know, what Patty has created for herself? So those were the issues that we were kind of dealing with, I think, by the inclusion of those ideas.
Yeah, I grew up playing the drums. 5th grade, you had to make a choice, and I picked the drums because my sister played the drums, because I thought drummers who were girls were really cool. And I just want to say that watching this film today, you inspired me as an artist, playing the drums. And it was just incredible. Everything that you were talking about, the chaos, what drummers have to do, I get that. And I just want you to, it seems to me you're an inspiration to other young girls to play the drums. And do you see that role, that you can be that today?
Yeah, I needed these women when I was a kid. You know, I needed women like Gina Shock or Mo Tucker, and to see them playing music, and to see them doing voice, you know, playing the drums, which was I'd only seen men do. And today, there's organizations like Rock and Roll Camp for Girls, which I'm part of, that, you know, shows the girls that we can play, we can do, you know, it teaches them every aspect of being in a band, or you know, promoting your band, and so there's no, you know, there's no time when a girl who's 11 is going to go into Guitar Center, let's say, and ask for some drumsticks, and they're not going to look at her like she's stupid, like what happened to me, when they would look at my brother and go, "What can I get you, young man?" You know, and you know, we're teaching, you know, these girls how to do it, and I'm glad to be part of that and to be that role model to these girls.
I think we have time for one more question. And I know this gentleman here in the middle has had his hand up a long time, so right there.
Thank you. Just a quick question for Patty. Did Courtney ever formally apologize to you for what happened with Slippery Skin?
Yeah. But her way of apologizing was like to send a note and say, "I'm sorry, here's a MacBook," you know, or flowers or something. But you know, and then I'd see her and she'd say, "You know, I'm sorry about all that stuff," you know, and then. But you know, everybody has in the band, and sort of like, yeah. So I guess in the film, that was sort of the resolve to everything, was their views and me telling my story. So I felt it's good to close that chapter, you know, and we're good together.
I'm adding to that answer. She also, I don't know if you guys mentioned this, she and Eric gifted us the music. So, you know, which is huge. This film wouldn't have been possible really without that. So, you know, Courtney is who she is, but that was a huge generosity. And as far as we're concerned, you know, me and Patty, a bit of a apology, you know. So again, that just adding to that answer.
Yeah.
We want to hear you play.
I know, right? In Los Angeles, actually, we're screening a centerpiece at Outfest, and afterwards, Patty is putting together an all-star band for us, and they're going to play at the outdoor theater, the Ford Theater across from Hollywood Bowl. It's going to be pretty awesome. So if anybody's in Los Angeles,
Bastille Day.
July 14th.